Totally. Because you can get that popcorn there, popcorn that has the nutritional yeast on it is like
My
the
God,
best
yeah.
popcorn. Oh my goodness.
Hey, everybody. Those of you arriving, switch to speaker view. You can do that from the upper right-hand corner of your screen where it says view. And that way you get to avoid that Hollywood Squares effect. How many people remember Hollywood Squares? God, does that date me?
It was like Paul
No,
Lynn, like my
seriously,
first
though.
gay experience was watching Paul Lynn lisp on the Hollywood
Oh
Square.
my God, Paul Lynn.
What
Yes,
a
yes, yes.
genius. Yes.
Indeed. Well, howdy,
Right.
everyone, and welcome to the virtual iteration of City Lights events calendar. I'm your host, Peter Maravellis, welcoming you to the Dopamine Variety Show. City Lights celebrates the launch of a thrilling new cultural and publishing venture. But before we begin, as always, we want to remind you that we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral homelands of the Ramaytush peoples, also known as the San Francisco Bay Area. Numerous dialects of their language have been spoken along this peninsula, so let's take a moment to offer some respect to those who came before us as stewards of the land. So Dopamine is a queer literary organization that aims to elevate LGBTQI writings and writers through publishing their books, producing a reading series, crafting literary tours, workshops, and much, much more. Dopamine is dedicated to stylistic stories of unvarnished queer existence. Dopamine works closely with the legendary indie publisher Semiotext in Los Angeles, in whose footsteps they follow. And hello, Hetty, we love you. Dopamine is rad. Dopamine is off the chart queerdom. Dopamine wants to subvert and expand the national narrative. Dopamine is sexy and dangerous. Dopamine is a .org, not a .com. Dopamine is dope. And Dopamine will be producing all manner of awesomeness in the years to come. And tonight, City Lights celebrates the publication of 2 new books, the Sluts Anthology, which we love dearly, which is edited by our dearly beloved Michelle T., and also New Mistakes by Clement Goldberg. And we have in the house an all-star cast of current and future Dopamine authors, with we will celebrate these awesome books and kick off the voyage of this amazing cultural phenomenon. So the list reads like a who's who of queerer than fuck awesomeness, fit for a lovely evening such as this. Joining us will be Vera Blossom, Clement Goldberg, Brooke Palmieri, Naz Riahi. Did I pronounce that correct? Okay, I hope I did. Shawn, Stewart, Ruff, and Scully. And of course, their ringleader in all of this, the transgressive mystic, editor, writer, memoirist, troublemaker par excellence, Michelle T. It is a delight to have Michelle back with us after so many moons. She was once an editor at City Lights with her own imprint. I don't know how many of you knew that. Published some cool stuff back then and continues to publish and promote cool stuff now. So delighted to welcome Michelle to host this lovely evening. But before we start, I do want to remind everyone that we will be posting in the chat function of your Zoom dashboard with which you may buy the Sluts Anthology and Clement's book, and also be posting links to the Dopamine website so you can link up and keep an eye on their work. So please join us now in offering a warm welcome to the ever fabulous Michelle T. to get the evening started. Welcome to City Lights, everybody.
Oh my God. Thank you, sir. I want you to come with us all the time. This is amazing. I'm Michelle. I publish Dopamine along with Beth Pickens, who's in the audience somewhere. Hi, Beth. And Brooke Palmieri, who joined initially as an author and is now part of the Leo triumvirate and is designing the books, which is incredible. And also, like Peter said, with Eddie Alcolti from Semiotext helping us out enormously with distribution and publishing, and with Katie Frickus, who's our copy editor. It takes a village to bring these books into the world. I'm so happy to be here presenting all the folks that we're publishing in 2024 and 2025. It's really excited. We're all booked up to like 2028, so hopefully the planet will still be here and we can do more of these, moving into the future. But let's all just be here now. We always have right now. I'm going to sort of introduce you to all the writers and have a little chit chat, and we're going to play like we're like on a talk show. And then after that, they're all going to read a little bit from the works that are coming out on Dopamine. So thank you, everybody. I'm like shocked at how many folks have signed on. This is really fun, really cool. And we'll have time for a Q&A. So if you have any cues, just put them in the chat. I think that's the best place to look at them. I first want to introduce you to Clement Goldberg, who is an award-winning multidisciplinary artist, writer, director, and animator, and a self-taught animator. Like, who teaches themselves how to do stop motion animation? Clement does. They are non-binary, trans, and queer. Their work across disciplines creates satirical yet hopeful projects that center collective grief rooted in climate crisis, cultural erasure, and extinction. Clement's debut novel is New Mistakes. It's out. Their feature project, Let Me Let You Go, received a 2022 Creative Capital Award, which is really cool. And, you know, we just got this great review from New Mistakes in the Washington Post saying that it slyly probes the wobbly line between artist and online influencer, between the personal and the parasocial. This surreal queer science fiction book reminded me of Isabel Widener's playful, bewildering recent works, which is a very good thing, says Charlie Anders in the Washington Post. I loved that. Clement just got back from a book tour. So it was Clement's first book tour. It was Dopamine's first book tour. And I'm dying to know, can you spill some tea about your book tour? Like, what a bizarre and intense time to be traveling through the United States of America as a queer author.
That's true. I wish I had like a let's see. Sorry, this is kind of my voice is coming back at me. Hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah, you sound fine to me.
Oh, good. Okay. I want to come up with something interesting to say, and I feel like they're like, what do I want to say? Well, I had a really good time. It was just kind of fun and a little bit dystopic with, you know, driving through a hurricane and things like that. But most of all, it was just really great to see all of the wonderful people out there that want to support Dopamine books and wanted to hear my book. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something, I've been trying to think of like some kind of anecdote, but I don't know that I have a quick one for you.
You know, when my 10-year-old was younger and we tried to get him to talk about his day at school, and he much like you had nothing to say, even just been on an incredible adventure. We would ask, could he share a rose and a thorn? So can you share a rose from your trip and a thorn from your trip? AKA
I mean, there were so many roses, and I think being in conversation, and having a bunch of my favorite artists launch the book, I think those are my beloved and treasured memories. And also getting to meet Tori Peters in person, who wrote this incredible blurb that is like on the cover of my book. That was really dreamy. So that is definitely goes into the rose category. I mean, Thorn would be COVID taking out one of the bookstore events, which was tragic, and then the hurricane taking out another, the hurricane in Asheville, which people are still recovering from, and don't have water and are kind of pulling things together still. So that was that was the dystopic. So it was like a fun tour and then a dystopic tour. But I think seeing beloved friends and queers all over the country was something I will treasure.
Yeah, I got to be there at your New York reading where you were in conversation with Tori Peters. Tori, of course, the author of Detransition Baby, one of like the most great novels of our recent years. Just like such a powerful, amazing writer, and such a sexy voice. And she's up there just like husking into the mic at you. I just amazing. And she wasn't even talking to me. So you know, kudos for keeping it together when that was happening. All right, well, we're gonna come back around to you and have you read a little bit. But now we're gonna swap over to Vera Blossom, who is not broadcasting live from a disco on another planet, although she kind of looks like she is. Vera Blossom is a proud trans Filipina. She was born in the Bay Area, forged in Las Vegas. That explains the lighting, and currently lives in. You make her work explores desire, pleasure, gender, spirituality, art, and death with explicit vulgarity and frank humor. a bold and vulnerable collection from a bright new literary voice. Her debut novel will be out in December. How to Fuck Like a Girl. It's not a novel, it's a collection of essays. It's her debut work. It's a daring mashup of pillow book, grimoire, and manifesto. Please welcome Vera Blossom. We're planning such fun stuff for Vera. We have a big LA reading that's going to be happening at the ICA LA, the Institute of Contemporary Art, and it's being called Doll Stars because it's just going to be like all trans femmes like reading from how to fuck like a girl. It's just going to be like the funnest event of the century. Vera, you started putting your work out into the world by doing newsletters. So How to Fuck Like a Girl, its first incarnation in a very different content, but not really, but sort of, was the newsletter How to Fuck Like a Girl. And then you followed up with the newsletter Snack Report. How did you why did you start publishing newsletters?
I feel like it came from both a place of boredom and frustration. Which was that I was just so like, especially when I first started the How to Fuck a Girl newsletter, there was like rampant censorship happening on social media of trans voices and trans bodies, and a sort of negative sexualization and like if you were a trans person or a fat person or a person of color and you had any sort of body picture on your Instagram, like you would get like shadow banned or fully banned. And that was happening on like Twitter, and it happens to people on dating apps too. And I was just like, it just felt like the internet that I had grown up on was being sanitized. Like the interesting, weird internet full of people who are like passionate and just sort of talking about their lives and all their interests. It felt like it was like going down the drain. And I was like, I wanted to go back to that. And I felt like the world needed me. And I was really frustrated and bored with all of the shows that were like going viral, like all the shows everyone was watching on Netflix, all the movies that were going. I mean, I know everyone's like, there's unnecessary sex scenes in movies, but I was like, there's not enough unnecessary sex scenes in movies. It just felt like I was like, where's all the weird shit? Like, or if there was sex, it would be so vanilla. I'm like, I want like freaky, obsessed people. I want like horny perverts. I also was like, I wanted to create representation of a weird trans person who was like obsessed with sex and love. And I felt like there was a narrative that it was like we're normal and that's why we deserve rights. And I was like, I'm not normal. I'm a freaky weirdo. So I was like, I'm gonna be the light or the darkness that we need.
That we need. So great. Thank you. I'll come back around to you. Get to hear a little bit from How to Fuck Like a Girl. Now I will introduce Shawn Stewart Ruff. He's the author of 3 novels, including Finlater, the 2008 winner of a Lambda Literary Award for debut fiction, and a finalist for the Edmund White Debut Fiction Award. He's also the editor of the landmark Go the Way Your Blood Beats, an anthology of lesbian and gay fiction by African American writers. And we are going to be publishing his book Days Running, which will come out this February. Hi, Shawn Stewart Ruff. I wanted to ask you about when the book award, probably because it was how I first got to learn about you and learn about Finlater, which is such a fantastic book. And I'm just wondering, what was that experience like for you?
Writing the book, or I'm sorry, you've kind of faded out a little bit.
I was
I
talking.
can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Go now. Speak.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, well, actually, I wanted to hear about what it was like for you to win the Lambda, but tell me about writing Finlater. Wow.
Okay. Well, I think I had that book in me all my life, and I didn't actually sort of look at it, as a possibility until I had like this huge window of time. It was after I live in New York City, and it was after the 9/11 madness. Suddenly, I found myself with no work, and a boyfriend and we just basically started traveling all over the place. We were in Hawaii and got really sick of each other, living in a small, cramped apartment. on Maui, in Kihei. And anyway, that's where I began writing that book. And it just kind of popped out of me. I'd been struggling to write fiction for a while, and I'd written a couple of books which were colossal failures. But you kind of know when you got it right, and I think that's what that book was for me. It was like this signal that, okay, you do know what you're doing, and this isn't all pointless. So it was really terrific. I mean, I unfortunately wasn't able to find a traditional publisher to take it on. They were really appalled by the way that I had rendered the boys, who are the, lovers in the story. They didn't think the book was YA enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd been in that loop before, the book that basically the agent promises will be sold, and of course no one wants it in the end. So I wrote Thin Later and then put it on a shelf for a while, and a friend of mine said, Shawn, I've never read any of your work before, send something over. So I sent that book, and suddenly, I got really sort of excited because the friend, who's an artist, was very excited, and she kind of talked me into self-publishing it. So that's what I did. And I want to say that was probably the best thing that I could possibly have done for myself. It gave me not only a sense of, like power, but also a sense of accomplishment beyond just simply writing the book. It's like I put it into the world. And I didn't imagine it would win any awards, of course. I had this dynamo person helping me out with publicity and all that. And I think she probably even sent the book to be considered at these, awards events. And, suddenly it was winning and getting all kinds of, notice.
Oh, did Shawn freeze only for me, or did he freeze for others?
No, he's frozen up.
Frozen.
Okay, we'll come back to Shawn. I think we got most of that story, but what I would like to say is that Shawn, the main character of Finlater, who is this adolescent boy, Cliffy, is also the main character of Days Running, the novel that we are publishing at Dopamine. And we see him again years later, senior in high school, and are with him as some gnarly shit happens. You don't need to have read. Oh, hi, you're back.
Yeah, I made it back.
Welcome back.
Yes.
About how the main character of Finlater is also the main character of Days Running. It's Cliffy. It's so great to see him all grown up, even though it's heartbreaking, some of the shit he's dealing with, but he's such a great character. And you don't need to have read Finlater to read and get into and understand Days Running, but you're going to want to read Finlater, after, if not before, to get you revved up. So we'll come back to you in a moment.
Okay.
Hear some of the book. And now we're going to pop over to Naz Riahi. She is a writer, a filmmaker, a performer. Her essays and stories have been published in A Public Space, Harper's Bazaar, Long Reads, Catapult, Guernica, Food and Wine, and other magazines and literary journals. She holds an MFA and is the recipient of a fellowship at Yaddo, the MAP Fund Grant for Performance, and an NYFA City Arts Corporation grant. She can be found at nazriahi.com and on Instagram at nazriahi. And she's right here. You can find her right here talking about her book, Vibrations. It's a collection of short stories. They're so great. They're like in the process of being edited. I just sent her one today and I was like, this one has mad Shirley Jackson vibes. This is like a short story that's like, it's vibing. It's giving me Shirley. It's giving me mad Shirley. I wanted to ask you, Naz, you've published in all these places, and the piece that you wrote for Harper's Bazaar, I Am Iran's Daughter, that was published in like 22 when the female-led uprising was happening in Iran, it went so viral that even like Kardashians were like reposting it. And I'm so curious to hear what that experience was like for you.
Okay. Hi, thank you for having me, and thank you for publishing my book.
Yeah, thank you for
And
letting us.
responding to my 10,000 emails a day. So today I was supposed to be editing my book, but I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna watch this trashy docuseries Anatomy of Lies on Peacock, and it's all about this writer who was a grifter and worked on Grey's Anatomy and was like so rich and successful. But she got that job because she published an essay in Elle magazine that went viral about having cancer, which she didn't have cancer. And I was like, she publishes a thing that goes viral and she gets a fucking high-paying job in a writer's room, and I write this thing about a revolution and nothing happens.
You should have given yourself a deadly disease too.
I should have.
Sorry, you're just not.
Is it not enough to be bombed? Is it not enough to live with men who want to kill you all the time?
My God, that's so crazy that your stories are similar in that way. I've been reading a lot about that show, but I haven't watched it yet, but I want to. I love a lesbian lying about a fatal disease to grift her.
So good. And there's a Vanity Fair article. Anyway, thank you for asking about that. My spouse joked that, like, as I was writing this piece, I was sobbing and crying, and it was so hard. It was one of the most painful things I've written. And I had like a week to write it. They commissioned it. They asked me to write something. And then I also had posted this thing that went viral about the revolution. And so I would be like sobbing and I would be so upset. And then every day I would be like, Zendaya regrammed me. He was like, the flip side of the revolution.
Whoa, what a like weird. I mean, it's always so weird to be on the internet because it is nothing but like two threads of like utter horror and nightmare, and then like fun stuff happening to your friends, books you want to read, shit, cute people at parties, and it's just like, and that to have your piece be the thing that's like blowing up in the midst of like all this horror. Oh, it must have just been such a wild, weird time for you.
It was amazing to get to say something about Iran that people read and what was happening there and what the experience was, because our stories aren't really told. Much like Shawn, I wrote a book a few years ago that didn't sell, even though the agent was a big agent and thought it would sell. And the response I got from editors was, this is not Iranian enough, or this is too Iranian. We've already seen this. And this was like 7 years ago. I'm like, named 3 Iranian books.
So offensive and like not true. Like there's so many problems with that. I can't believe when I hear it also seems like it's a very familiar story that I hear people of color say when they're talking to gatekeepers who I can only imagine are white people, or at the very least, like not people who share your ethnicity, telling you that you're not enough of your ethnicity, like you don't fit their stereotypes of what you should be doing or something. I don't know. You didn't run up with a big samovar of tea or something. I know, what did they want?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I love Vibrations, and it's such a contemporary and real look at like what life can be like for women from Iran in America, after the revolution, immigrants, or the overthrow, not the revolution, or would you call it the revolution? It's the bad revolution, not the good revolution, the bad revolution. And we're going to get to hear from it in a bit. And now I'm going to pop over to Scully, who is in Boston. Elle is a living writer and a double Capricorn. They are the co-founder of Stone of Madness Press, which seeks to create a digital space to uplift queer, trans, and neurodivergent writers. They were recently included on the Independent Press Awards 40 Under 40 in Publishing. That's one of those lists. Very cool. Elle writes books in an attic and hosts gay readings in New England. They are the proud parent of a very bad dog. I feel like you're probably not the only one here, actually. It seems like, yeah. We are publishing Elle's collection, Self-Romancing, which I don't even know what this book is, you guys, and I'm publishing it. Is it a poetry book? Is it a memoir in self-affirmations, self-affirming, post-it notes? Like, it's so wild and unhinged that the minute that it came in to my email box, I was like, yes, absolutely. This is why we're doing Dopamine, to publish something like this that just pops into your email box, like unseen, unknown. So yeah, we're really excited about it. And it's got a really cool cover by the artist Kate White. And Elle, what I want to ask you is, nobody will be surprised after hearing your bio that you recently hosted a poetry reading in the parking lot of a Hooters. And I'm just really curious to know how that went. How did it go?
It was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we Zoomed that earlier that day, and that was like really the affirmation that I needed to like dress up in my Hooters outfit and just go for it. Yeah, so nobody thought I was a Hooters girl, which was a little disappointing. I mean, I guess like I'm transgender, so there's that. But like I also, I don't know, I got a lot of pushback mostly from my mom about the Hooters reading. On the phone, she was like, I really never thought that like you would be saying this. And I was like, okay, but you also never really thought I was gay. So like, tits or ass, mom. So anyway, it was great. Yeah, my very good friend Lucas, who is with us tonight, co-hosted, and we had a wonderful reading in the Hooters parking lot.
Oh my God, what a dream come true. So wait, is your mom like feminist? Was she like, I'm feminist mom,
Yes.
don't fuck with Hooters, it's not cute. It's
Yeah, my mom is a feminist mom, and I respect that very much, but I'm also gay.
there's, and gay people sometimes love Hooters and nobody knows why. It's part of the one.
It's
So
kitschy, it's yummy. They have burgers, they have cheesecake. Honestly, ask me what to get in the Hooters in your city, and I will send you an email.
gosh, I just love how community oriented the Dopamine authors are. Thank you so much, Elle. And I'm really, really excited to hear you read from Self-Romancing in a bit. So we'll be back to you. And now we're going to go over to Brooke Palmieri, who is a writer and an artist. I can't believe I'm going to say this, based in Joshua Tree. He just moved. It's very sad for me. His writing considers the past as a supernatural encounter, spanning hundreds of years of queer and trans history, and the magic, mystery, and erotics of working in archives. And in October 2025, his first book, Bargain Witch, Essays on Self-Initiation, will be published. So we're going to have Elle's book out in September, and then we're going to have Naz's book out in May. So then we're going in the spring, and then we go to the fall, we go to Elle, and then we go to Brooke in October. Because let's just, yes, they're pandering to witches in October. I'm a witch with a book out right now in October, but it's great. It's going to be great. Brooke, hi.
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 How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Fabulous. And look, part of the book is about me working in the witchcraft economy, and you just have to be honest that October is a great time for civilians to like practice witchcraft, Satanism, any form of pagan shenanigans, and you just have to capitalize on that, because at the bookshop where I worked, it basically paid the bills for like the next 6 months, what we could accomplish in October. So I'm very grateful for witchploitation during this time of year.
Yes, I love it so much too. And you have in your book, some of the writing that you did that's in the book is about having worked at such a famous, iconic occult store in the UK, Treadwell's. What's the tea on Treadwell's? What was that like?
Well, I was a loiterer at Treadwell's for a really long time. I first went when I was like 20, when it was in its old location. But then I moved to London permanently and was just hanging around enough and close enough with the owner, Christina, who like in the darkest hours of my life, as I was descending into my Saturn return, knew I needed a job and said, look, like, these books inside out, like, why don't you come work here? And it really changed my life. And I think like the book itself is sort of a bit of a deep cultural deep dive into like the history of witches, their persecution. But the frame narrative is definitely like the spiritual transformation that was made possible for me day in and day out of working in like one of the weirdest, strangest places it's possible to work. And like, it covers like the good, the dark, and the light of that. So I'm a spiritual seeker. I was meeting spiritual seekers and able to kind of place encounters with deities like as in a place of importance, just like every day, the way I would brushing my teeth. Like I was encountering God three to four times a day. And then like at the same time, being a witch has its dangers, and having a open storefront with books on witchcraft and demon conjuring sometimes brings in people who are very against that, or who have a lot of religious hangups when they see those types of words. So it's about managing all of that. And then I guess essentially coming to a place like in this very countercultural scene where I can like afford to transition through selling books. So that's the long and the short of it.
Oh my God, that's so great. I can't wait for your book and to brainstorm what weird witchy things we'll have to do to celebrate
Oh
it.
yeah, it starts tonight. Like everyone's implicated.
Oh my God. Okay, so fun. I'm gonna go peek at the chat. Okay, that's amazing. We love L. Now I want to find a Hooters in LA. There is a Hoots Wings in Pasadena. The National Series of Poetry Readings in Hooters parking lot begins now. Vera Blossom wrote it, so it is true. Okay, we're gonna pop over now to the readings part of this. I'm so excited to hear everybody. So everyone out there in internet land, kick back, listen to these books. Some are available right now, some are available for pre-order, and some you just have to just carve their titles on your arm, and just like dream about them till their pub date arrives. We're going to start with Clement Goldberg reading an essay from the fantastic New Mistakes.
Thank you. Since I'm home and here with my cat, I'm gonna read a chapter of the book that she inspired and was the cat consultant for the entire book. But just gonna read this little chapter for you. Okay. Henry moved too quickly as he added a light to the top of his bookcase. The clamp missed the shelf and the lamp dropped to the floor. Henry gasped. Edith was startled. She jumped to attention on the blue screen mat. Her furry tuxedo face grimaced. She stretched, gave Henry the once-over with her bright green eyes. Henry was a vision in his teal romper and ankle socks. Edith was decisive with her energy expenditure and dramatic in general. It made her a movie star. Henry was sure about that. So sure that he invested in headshots with his foot-long muse. Edith made her way to the sunny spot by the window. Henry agreed to give Edith a 20-minute break. He could fuss with the setup in the meantime. His three-point lighting was created from various yard sale lamps. He used additional lights to separate out the blue screen. He mounted his phone using a bendy tripod that he got from the dollar store. He kicked a box of props into the kitchen. His effort took over the entire studio apartment, but he was able to monetize his videos by allowing ads. Henry wanted to be a gay, black, Jackson Galaxy type figure, down to his own line of cat toys. His feline partner Edith was anti-work and had less of an interest in the finer things. Despite being only 9 pounds, she did not pull her weight. Henry noticed the low battery icon warning and plugged in his laptop. He put a small black and white stuffed zebra, Edith's stand-in, onto the blue screen. He checked the chroma key to make sure the blue screen looked correct around her fur. Fur was tough to key around with his current software and lighting setup. Okay, Edith, we are ready for you. Edith responded telepathically. That felt more like 10 minutes. Henry crossed his arms and dropped his head. Edith caved and sauntered over to the blue screen. Fine, what do you want me to do in the scene? Henry softened. Well, what I want to do is have a conversation with you in front of our viewers and show them how we communicate. You know that would be life-changing, right? Edith knew exactly that. She liked their lives, did not want them to change, and had told him countless times that it would invite trouble because the world was not yet ready. Henry was annoyed but remained driven. Let's focus on the scene at hand. At Pa, you mean? Yes, fine, the scene at Pa. He tapped his laptop and showed her the Klaus Nomi edit they were working on for You Don't Own Me, which was, in their shared opinion, hilarious for a cat to cover. Edith admired Klaus's artistry, and Henry was happy to do something unexpected. Edith told him to add a lipstick filter to her face to sell the post more. Henry was surprised. He leaned towards being a consistent purist. Edith was savvy when she spoke to him and knew how to manipulate Henry into doing what she wanted. Yes, okay, you probably know best. The ease in her voice set the trap. Henry's self-confidence unraveled. He said he could try a couple of things, just to see. He also wanted her lip sync to be closer to perfect, but she was the movie star. Edith had a real handle on the uncanny and knew when to be more cat-like. She had command over the English language and all of their telepathy and never explained how she seemed to learn it so quickly. Edith suspected that if Henry knew more about the situation and had a fuller grasp on the mechanics of their communication, he would exploit the knowledge for financial gain. She was not wrong. Cats are excellent judges of character, and ones as adept at telepathy as Edith had an even higher emotional intelligence. The fact that cats were largely assholes had nothing to do with the lack of comprehension. Henry liked to think he wanted his world to change, but like cats, he did not deal well with change. Therefore, Edith had her paws full with Henry and performed too much unpaid emotional labor. She knew he would be a world-famous pet psychic given his innate abilities in conjunction with the evolutionary leap in consciousness he had undergone, but it would be his undoing. She did not think the world was ready to embrace someone like Henry. She studied Jackson Galaxy with him. White, cis, straight, married, recovered addict, and rock star. Henry was none of those things. Henry was an absolute treasure, but he was way too ahead of the times, and timing mattered. Edith always had the upper paw when he grew impatient. She cut off telepathy, cold-shouldered him, and acted coy, like she was just a regular normie cat, incapable of anything more. She was stubborn, lazy, and would take things out on furniture if pushed too far. Edith was also beautiful and knew it. She traded on her looks, and Henry always came around to doing things her way. That's it. New mistakes available now. Thank you.
Yay! Hooray! I'm sorry it took me a minute to there. That was so good. I love that chapter. I love Edith. She's so wise. We see a little like Edith behind, just over your shoulder, because you have your little, yes, there. I'm like putting my little cursor on it as if anybody can see that. Thank you, Clement. The book is for sale at City Lights right now. The link is in the chat. So go check it out and drop any questions you might have for any of these geniuses. Now we're going to turn it over to Vera Blossom, who's going to read a bit from How to Fuck Like a Girl, which will be out on December 4th. Yes, cannot wait.
Okay, hi everyone. Yes, I'm reading from my book. I was initially going to read about this portion where I'm not having sex, but I felt like after my big wind up, I should probably read a part with more sex in it. Okay, so here I go. This is how I began my foray into girlhood, with lots of sex. Some of my earliest spellcrafting happened while I was fucking strangers. I'd imagine myself playing the role of an ingenue, the dumb slut in a porn video, the horny girl in a movie. Then I'd go and fuck a big, strong man, the kind of dude who leaned into toxic machismo, who liked to feel like a big, strong man. Don't get me wrong, I was always a romantic, hoping for some meet cute where I'd find someone in real life and we'd play out a sweetheart romance like in the movies. Instead, I found intense psychosexual relationships with lesbian adjacent classmates and an internet boyfriend who was too old for me. These were the people I could meet in my day-to-day life in Las Vegas. Hence, Craigslist. Alone in my bedroom, I made a new reality come into being. The kind of reality where I was not a sad, lonely art school burnout and college dropout. Instead, I was a beloved slut with men clawing to be with me. With the correctly worded advertisement, I'd have dozens of emails in my inbox from men in the city who wanted a piece of me. I felt desired. At this point, most of my friends had left the city for college on scholarships or moved away from their parents to try and make a life for themselves in Vegas. I was simply someone who dropped out of college on orientation day. I took my photo, got my printed university ID, got into my car, and withdrew from all my classes. That is all to say, I was feeling self-destructive and in need of anything to make me feel better. I was too much of a square to binge drink and did not know where I would be able to get drugs, so I turned primarily to sex. I found a lot of my first sexual experiences in the pages of Craigslist Personals, rest in peace. Craigslist ads are a kind of manifestation ritual. Write the magic words into a secret book and voila, cock. My secret to getting laid was playing up my assets, young, dumb, and Filipino. I played up my twunky, that's a portmanteau of twink and hunk. My twunky youth, inexperienced bottom seeks pleasure, 20, 6 feet tall, 215 pounds, Filipino. I made it easy to imagine a tan, fit hunk looking to get smashed rather than what I felt like. An awkward body, meat clumped on the bone, lanky. I lied about my age too, adding another year to my real one. The inexperienced part felt true at least. Reading my old Craigslist ads now feels painful. I didn't even know who I was, yet I could discern that I possessed certain superficial qualities that other people saw as valuable. So I added them up and put them on sale. I was so hungry, so desperate for physical touch, the heat of another body pressed up against mine, that I'd remix my profile, add new details, make myself younger or older, fib on my ethnicity, jump over a few kilometers. So I wasn't Filipino, but Thai or Japanese, with German or English heritage mixed in. I could be 6 feet tall or believably 6'3" if I was feeling petite, maybe 5'10". I'd be 200 pounds or 250, whatever attracted more attention. I'd just fudge. These were details that someone couldn't really figure out anyway. They were projections of what I imagined they wanted. It feels so reductive to dissect oneself into categories like this, but the gay hookup scene, as it perhaps always has been, was focused on bodies seeking bodies for sexual catharsis, not really on people seeking people. If you wanted to get off, you better accurately, or at least idealistically, describe your own puzzle piece so you could find the one you wanted to fit together with. It goes on for a while, but if that's, maybe that's a good place to stop.
Yay, I'm unmuted. I'm being controlled. I'm being controlled by city lights, basically. That's what's happening. That was so great. I'm so excited about this book. Yes, big hearts. Out in December. Some sort of tour will be happening, right? We're Chicago, LA, Madison, New York City. Where else? Portland. Oh, wait, maybe not Seattle. Seattle? Who knows? Yeah, we got a month or so. We'll figure it out. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Vera Blossom. Vera's book is available pre-order, so check it out. Oh, look at her, just dumping her tour dates into the chat. So profesh. Thank you. Next up, it is Shawn Stewart Ruff. He's going to be reading a portion of his novel, Days Running. Take it away, Shawn.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Obviously there's background noise. I'm in the East Village on First Avenue and 13th Street. So I'm going to read a short excerpt. It's the first chapter. I need to put my other glasses on too. Sorry. Last thing I remember, Mom's face floating above me, the ambulance screaming through traffic. That happened last night or the night before. Hard to know which. Now I toggle between sleep and waking, unsure what's going on or where I am. I know Mom is near, though she seems to be looking away when I come and go. A tube in my arm sucks from a saline sac. I see letters and numbers scrolling across monitors to my left. A window tall, wide, and with many panes to my right. The glass looks between the cold, snowy morning outside and the fluorescent warmth inside the room. In a trick of light, I can also see two reflections of me. One is outside the room and the other inside, and they seem to be watching each other shyly. Outside me has a swollen face and a bandaged head that makes inside me wince with pain. My skin tingles when his finger touches the area around his eyes. Now it tingles along my neck and then stops where swallowing hurts. A shadow passes over him before darkening over me too. Outside me and inside me cry out for Mom. I knew I wasn't alone, but now I feel the presence of others. The professionals in the room promise she's nearby. Soon her presence and her smell of baby powder calm me down. Cliffy, sweetheart, we've been waiting for you, she says. She is a blur to my eyes. I need reassurance and want her to climb into bed beside me. I want to feel the bulge of her pregnant belly between us. But Dad is here too. He passes like a combat shadow that blocks the window light and the mysteries within the glass. Boy, glad you're back, he says. Another professional arrives. This woman's voice is familiar to me, but like in a dream. My parents, or lack as we teen offspring call them, want real answers from her. So do I. But the story she tells, but the story she's telling confuses me and probably confuses them too, as if she's talking about somebody else's son named Cliffy. That Cliffy suffered injuries from a recent encounter, a concussion, a hematoma, a head and face lacerations, a bruised rib, bruising throughout the body, ligature marks on the neck. She says, your son appeared to be under the influence when he was admitted last night, which isn't uncommon in this area. We see a lot of cocaine and angel dust and overdoses. My understanding is smudged and won't wipe clear. What she is saying doesn't jive with me at all. I'm not a party boy. I'm a stellar student. Okay, the occasional joint, screwdriver or equivalent, a hit or two of speed during finals, nothing else. I want to explain, but my voice is a smudge too. But when this same doctor recommends a few days in the hospital for observation, keep him as long as you need to. Just take care of our boy, Dad says. I don't need to see clearly to know that my parents are leaving. I feel angry before realizing their going is a good thing. I want to speak with the professional alone. I want to stand up for myself in this flattened state. I need to resolve the Cliffy I am with the Cliffy in the glass and the Cliffy she's talking about. I try to cough up the smudge voice and now feel something wrong. Something major is wrong. My body hurts with throbs, burning sensations and tightness, but only now do my legs act up. They seem unable to move, and me a runner with legs that won't move. Words scrape out through my pain throat, trying to ask if I'm paralyzed. The professional says, no, you're sedated. Try not to speak. Your vocal cords have been bruised from the strangulation. Your voice will return in a few days. Don't worry. Strangulation? The word, the meaning haunts me. Just now I do remember being overcome with my neck in a grip. And I remember an awareness of fighting that grip, of being reeled in like a fish and then clobbered out cold. I see now that it connects to the reason I lie here, glazed by sedation. It's more important, though, to assert myself. And I want this professional to know I'm the Cliffy going to UCLA. I want her to know I remember today is the first day after the end of Christmas break. I want her to know I don't have time to laze for days in the hospital. Failure is like a hematoma that clots the future. That's something the Cliffy I am might say if I could speak. I'm fading now. I point to the window and gesture for her to close the curtains against the view, against the iterations of me and the fights between light and shadow. She is close enough that I can make out her name, Dr. Fang Fang. She knows more about me from last night. That's it.
Thank you so much, Shawn. It's so amazing to hear you read from this book that I've read so many times and have thought about so much. And then, like, there you are, the creator, bringing it all to life. Cliffy, I love Cliffy. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great. Naz Riahi is up next, reading from her short story collection, Vibrations, which will be out on May 19th.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'm going to read a little bit from a story called The Desert, which will be out, I think in December in Public Space, which is a great literary journal where I've always wanted to publish, and now I am. So, The Desert. Why is she smiling at us? I asked. A toddler was stumbling towards us in the drunken way they do. She thinks she's very cute, my mother replied. We were speaking Farsi. She looks old to me, I said, like an old lady, Hirazan. Yeah, she does, my mother said. Then my mother smiled at the baby, but it wasn't a normal smile. Her face contorted forcefully, and the effort was visible. She waved. Hi, sweetie, she said in her thickly accented English. I looked back at the girl again. She was waving at us. Her mother, a strikingly Scandinavian-looking woman, very tall with long, straight blonde hair, trailed behind, giving the child room to breathe and explore. Her father was also tall, but dark-haired and olive-skinned. He sat at a nearby table, consumed by his phone. I hope she's not bothering you, the mother said to us. Not at all, I said. She's adorable, my mother said. Thank you. I give her a lot of room to figure things out. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad way to parent. We were at the restaurant of the Parker Palm Springs, a fancy mid-century hotel decorated by Jonathan Adler in his bright and imposing, yet somehow also pleasing way. My mother had always said she wanted to take a trip to Italy with me. She wanted us to go to Rome and Venice, to see Florence again, where she'd been with my father on their honeymoon. There are photos of her back then, at 20, her hair long and radiant, the subject of his love and camera. I wanted to give her this trip to Italy badly, but it was never the right time, and I never had enough money to do it the way I wanted, nicely, with lots of expensive amenities and perks. 2 nights at this hotel on my credit card points was the best I could do. In the car on the drive from Los Angeles, we'd both complained about how much we disliked children at hotels, especially fancy ones. I don't understand why parents have to take their kids everywhere with them in America, she said. We'd been living here for almost 30 years, but America was still foreign to her. She didn't understand showering daily. These women all look like wet cats going to work in the morning with their wet hair, she'd say. Or everything here is king-sized, from the candy bars to the California king beds. Why? She was unquestionably Iranian, but I often wondered if she'd be able to live there again. I asked myself the same question, even though I'd come in childhood, and she in her 40s. In the 70s, we just left the kids at home and asked the neighbor to check in on them, she said. You took me everywhere with you when I was a kid, I said. I had no choice, but these people, they have choices. I was your accessory. You dressed me up and showed me off. Yes, she said, as if that were all there was to parenting. The drive east from Los Angeles had been awful. I picked her up at Union Station, but she hadn't been able to find the right exit, and there was a kerfuffle of panicked phone calls about the homeless people around her. It was a frustrating few minutes that seemed to balloon into hours before she finally found me and got in. I should have parked and gone in to meet the train, but I was late and I worried about hitting traffic. She should have said, you should have parked, but she didn't, and that somehow made it all worse. It took us a while to get comfortable with each other again. That was always the case. But this was our first trip together alone as adults. The last time we traveled alone together was nearly 30 years before, when we'd escaped Iran. I was just a little kid, scared and awestruck by my mother's ability to leave that country unscathed, at least physically. We'd flown from Tehran to Istanbul and checked into a hotel that felt so grand and fancy to me. Its marble lobby went all the way up to the sky. A massive escalator took guests to one of the restaurants on site. The hotel's clean, modern lines and endless windows were a world away from anything I'd seen in Tehran. It felt like a beautiful, safe future. I could breathe. The hotel had a pool I dove into nightly, and the water cleansed my grief as I forgot for a few moments everything that had happened in Iran before we left. My mother lost her grief briefly in the hotel's shops. In the few days that we stayed in Istanbul, she and I walked around the city together. I kept my eyes peeled for the playground my dad had taken me to the last time we'd visited Turkey, before he was killed. I didn't know then that all of Turkey wasn't Istanbul, and that we'd previously been to Izmir. That playground with its steep slide that frightened and thrilled me, and the memory, one of very few I had of my dad, was 300 miles away. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Naz. That's great. I'm so happy that everyone's going to get a sneak preview of your work in the journal. And what was it called again?
It's called A Public Space.
Public Space. I was like, A Quiet Place. No.
A Quiet Place. No, that's like a scary movie, I think.
No,
A Public Space, and
Public-
it'll be out in December in print and possibly on their website as well. I don't know if you have to have a subscription, but yeah.
Really exciting. And then Vibrations, the story collection, will be out on May 19th.
Yes.
Thank you, Naz. Okay, next up is Scully reading from Self-Romancing.
Hi, I'm Scully. This is such an honor to read amidst people whose work I have looked up to for a long time. So thank you. Evenings can't be lonely because they are just evenings. The mini roses from Trader Joe's are a little bit much for me. Not everyone has a middle name. I have a middle name, and it is Rose. I'm not sure if I told you, but now you know. I am not lost within my own roster of pseudonyms. I am what my grandmother wished for. You are going to acknowledge my vulnerable email. You are going to watch this Instagram story and miss me. A queer future is the only future I want. I am not madly in love with someone disinterested. I am humbled by my addictions. Professionalism can't hurt me. The aching never stops, but here I am. I'm not going to like my therapist on Hinge. I am a good girl without the girl part. I will not check if you've seen my message. I will not beg for love. I am not above anything, but my face could be above yours. I don't always need a hand to hold. At the same time, if you wanted to hold my hand, just ask. I almost did not know love or literature if it wasn't for you. I almost did not know. I want to lick the bones of your hips as they cup my face. I want to come at the same time across time and its space. I think of you when I turn on the shower. I think of you when I turn off the shower. I think of you when I slide my palms up my thighs in bed at night. I do not think of you while I'm being taken, but yes, I do. I think of you as the profiterole of gender, as my future boy wife, as the Salem tide as it ebbs and flows against my cold-toed death wish. I write you something every day. Even when I do not write to you, I am writing to you. I'm like, sorry, I lost my place. It is every day now. I would learn to cook you something, though all I can offer is bread. Let me take your body like the bread I received on my lips for so many young years. I like it when you take off your shirt. I aspire for you to take off mine in tandem. You almost make me want to ride a bicycle. I'd hold your hand across our bicycles if I remembered how to ride. I know how to ride you perfectly. I learned long ago in an arboretum before I met you. When I used to fuck my pillows, the ghost of you was in my head. I drew you on the floor. Your name ejaculates the rush of love into my sorry heart. You make my heart unsorry. Let me introduce you to my family through a letter or a mirror or the flesh. I thought of you the night of my graduation. I always think of you at night. I fear I always will. The anarchy of your devotion and the emailed love letters make me want to rethink underwear. I will work so hard so I can take you to dinner in London. I will work hard for you in the way that isn't work at all. This is a love note that you asked for, but I would have written anyway. I am reading your hands in gratitude. Our hands will touch our shaky hands. I am entitled to artificial flavoring. Intimacy is making its way to me. I am not being ghosted. Actually, yes, I am, and that's okay. I am being ghosted, and that's okay. My dog did not eat a used condom and then shit it out completely. Not everyone on earth has my nudes. I am crafting a community guidelines post that men will adhere to. I am not blocked by people I love. The love I fell in yesterday will carry me through a lonely evening. Thank you.
So great. Thank you so much, Al. Again, it's so awesome to hear you read your work out loud. Like, never have heard that, but have read your manuscript so many times. It's like so excellent. Thank you. Oh, self-romancing, you guys. It'll be out in September. That's now less than a year. That's exciting. Our final reader comes out, his book comes out a year from now in October 2025. Brooke Palmieri's Bargain Witch. It's gonna be more than you bargained for. That's what I think.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I know I'm the last one, so I happen to have come up with a little PowerPoint presentation to somewhat embellish what I'm about to read, which is actually just a straight up like excerpt from the book. So let me share this with you. Here we go. On my altar, I venerate Mother Shipton, aka Ursula Southhill, who was born around 1488 and died in 1561. And seriously, all hail Mother Shipton, because 73 years old is really old in this time period of bloody conflict, plague, and no indoor plumbing or heating. She spent her life feared by powerful figures and occasionally prophesying their downfall, a true feat during times when traitors and heretics alike were burned by the thousands for treason. Mother Shipton was a witch who lent her voice to many other anonymous witches and gave us some of the earliest witch merch. From the late 17th century onward, the legend of her life and prophecies made for a popular merchandising tradition. There's plenty of this merch to recoup for your altars. For hundreds of years, you could buy little pamphlets about her. You could buy poems about what she predicted, prints depicting her in her cave or with her imp. Later, that expanded to board games, home goods like plates, cups, spoons, door knockers, figures carved in wood and in bone, puppets, and even more chapbooks and broadsides to tell your future. A lot of the rhyming prophecies are clearly counterfeit or fan fiction, depending on how you look at it. Things that she is not documented saying, but which were written and attributed to her way after death. But it's way bigger than that. Any depiction of a cartoon witch with a big crooked warty nose and a hunchback is, in its essence, a depiction of Mother Shipton. She's the original crone, the legendary hag whose grotesque features still look at us in Halloween costumes and decorations. The visual history of witchcraft is a history of Mother Shipton. I had wanted to make a pilgrimage to Mother Shipton's cave for years, and I finally went there in September 2018. The cave she was born in and moved back to live in later in life is located in Knaresborough, Yorkshire. The weirdest thing about driving into Knaresborough on pilgrimage to Mother Shipton's cave was this intense feeling of deja vu that came over me as the buttery gray northern English sunlight was blotted out by trees. The feeling was so strong that I was convinced I'd never experienced deja vu before that moment, and I never have since. Mother Shipton's Cave is the oldest tourist attraction in the United Kingdom. It's been marked as heritage site since 1630. Since 1630, pilgrims like me have been charged a small admission fee to enter the forest. It was really cool to imagine the possibility that I experienced deja vu because I've been visiting the same tourist attractions again and again across many lifetimes, amassing the same campy merchandise and prostrating myself before the same funky rock foundations. To get tickets to the forest where Mother Shipton lived, you have to go into the gift shop where they sell them. It's the perfect fusion of the holy through the profane. In the shop, there are waxen dioramas of Mother Shipton. There are multiple fortune-telling machines, Zoltar, Lucky Lady, and most prolific of all, throughout the large room, there are petrified objects positioned everywhere. That's because the main reason the area has been a tourist attraction since the 1630s is the well near the cave. The well itself is so rich in sulfate and carbonate that leaving items there causes them to be encrusted in a ghostly white shell of minerals. Objects petrified by the well hang from the ceiling of the gift shop. Baseball mitts, top hats, officers' hats, slippers, shoes, tea kettles, dolls. There's a petrified cowboy hat worn by John Wayne. There are petrified teddy bears everywhere. And if you order in advance, you can buy one from the shop upon your visit. Outside and hanging from the rock formation, dripping with water, there are long, ominous ropes of teddy bears strung up to petrify. Mother Shipton's cave itself is not very deep. Inside, a spotlight illuminates a bronze statue of the old crone herself, and you can press a button that plays some audio. The sound of a storm, the sound of witches' laughter. Behind the statue in the deepest part of the cave, I groped in the dark with my hand until I found a high shelf of rock on which to place my offerings to her. A hollowed out hagstone I'd painted gold, a shiny penny, a mixture of herbs. I'm not nostalgic for the past. I just think history is the ultimate bargain, saving time from having to reinvent the wheel, saving time felt isolated when there's nothing new under the sun, saving time from making the same mistakes, a treasure trove to mine for ideas and obsessions and lovable characters and underappreciated oddities. Honoring the reality of Mother Shipton's life and power required a deep dive into centuries of exaggerated perceptions captured in various pop cultural media and memorabilia. It's a rich store of historical information that by virtue of its sheer bulk and cartoonishness, you can neither dismiss nor take too seriously, which to me are the perfect conditions for serious spiritual self-evaluation. A lot of scholarship in pop culture focuses on the persecution of witches, but I don't like to limit my household gods to hassling the spirits of the extremely ill-served. I like scrappy witches who did more than get murdered, too. And in a world where we encounter death to some degree in our lives every day, I like to celebrate the miracle of dying by natural causes. I like to wish death by natural causes upon myself and all those whom I hold dear. I'll leave it there for now, but there you go, Mother Shipton.
Oh, okay. Now I can say what a perfect ending to this reading. What a perfect ending to this reading. That was incredible. I'm here with I have a Mother Shipton merch, my coffee cup. I can't believe that all that's been being produced for so long. All these images of this witch. And she's really what we think of when we think of, oh, like a cartoon witch. That's fascinating. That was so cool. You guys, can you believe this amazing group of writers? It's such a real joy to have everybody together. I hope that somehow can happen in person at some point. If you've been sitting on a question for any of us, now really is your time to throw it into the chat. Oh, Amra Brooks, another future. She'll be in the next one. Amra Brooks, whose book is coming out on dopamine in 2006. Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. Thanks for coming here. Well, if there's no questions, suppose then we'll release everybody to their
Do we
scrolling.
have to? Oh, come on. We can go on for a couple more hours. I'm loving this.
Well, it was an honor to get to do this here at City Lights. Even if it's virtual, I still feel, close to the actual physical space, which contains so much history. One of the best things I ever did with my son when he was just a baby was change his diaper on Lawrence Ferlinghetti's desk. And I look forward to him being old enough for that to really mean something to him, for him to understand. Let me see we got a question just popped in. Yay. Okay. Since many of you have publications coming out soon, do you have any stories about how a poem or a story started and how has it changed? I'm going to pop around to all of you guys if you all want to give an answer to that, if you have an answer to that. And I'll start with Lem. Do you want to talk about the genesis of New Mistakes or how the writing of it changed it?
I will. I will also, now I feel like I can answer your first question also and just say signing stock at City Lights was like a real thrill for me, and I will carry that with me forever. It's like, yeah, my 20-year-old self was like, passed out around that. It's such a formative bookstore, and Ferlinghetti and all of that stuff really put me on my path, I would say. I feel like the story I would share from New Mistakes was something that I shared on tour a little bit, which was that during the pandemic, I took a lot of walks up my street, and one of the things that happened on one of those walks is that I saw a glowing light in the sky, and I thought, oh my God, this is it. Like, it's happening right now. I have to go with the UFO. Like, this is where ET was filmed. This is the moment. I'm not ready. I don't want to go. But it's happening and I'm gonna have to. And I had this like visceral body reaction of like, no, 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 we're not, no, but you have to. And so it was a real like fight. So that became a real storyline in New Mistakes. And I'm not sure if that like has changed for me. I still think I would go. But I do think something that came out of the New York reading is I was kind of making this joke about the Voyager golden record that went out to the universe like in the 70s with all kinds of stuff on it. And I was like, the aliens had come back and they were real fans of this record, and and then the US government like blows them up is presumably what would happen, but and how like we really just don't want the government to be, and like an imperialist government to be, the ambassador to UFOs. And one of the things that became very clear to me was that I want Michelle T to be who represents us to the UFOs. So that's something that changed. That became very clear to me and elucidated on the tour. So hopefully you all agree and we can make that happen when they come. So
Oh my God. I mean, I think there needs to be a whole crew of reps. I will be one
sure,
of many.
sure. I nominate you for that committee.
Thank you. Thank you. And while I have you here, TJ Payne just threw up the question on the chat. If there was one writer that you could have at your reading, dead or alive, who would you choose and why? Don't overthink.
This is
Don't overthink.
David Warnerovich.
Perfect. And he could read the part about him in your book while in a cat mask. Love it. Love it. Woo! Okay. Vera, how about you? Do you want to say something about the origin of How to Fuck Like a Girl, or how it changed in the writing of the essays?
Yeah, I mean, the origin of How to Fuck Like a Girl is you asked me to write it. And so I wrote it. But in the
Oh, you cast a spell that I didn't even know about.
Oh, I did cast a spell for it. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, you
And
were like, I want to have a book, and you like cast a spell. And then I was like, oh, must have this book. And then I asked you, and you're like, oh my God, I just did a spell for this.
yeah, that's so true. Okay, yeah. Well, I was with my best friend and we were like in a slump and we went to this like 12-story food court in like downtown Chicago and we were like we forgot how to have dreams. And so we're like, what is the like craziest dream you could think of right now? And mine was I was like, I'm gonna have a book published in a year. And I was like, I had no manuscript. And also that's insane. Like a book doesn't get published in a year. And then I don't know at what point, but you reached out very soon after that and you're like, can you have a book ready? And I was like, I'm gonna have a book ready. And then I was like, well, I must have a book ready now. And that was great. That was really magical and fun.
Wow, your magic is strong, Vera Blossom. Very, very strong. And how about you? If there was one writer that you could have at your reading, dead or alive, who would you choose and why?
I feel embarrassed, but I feel like the first person who came to my mind was Anais Nin. I mean, it's like she just published her diaries with fucked up weird obsessions in them. What am I if not doing that? And I feel like we'd have a Kiki after the reading. She might either like think I'm really weird and not fuck with me, and or we would really vibe. I feel like she might think that and we would vibe.
Yeah, I think that you guys would vibe for sure. I love this. I just like imagine you on her little houseboat. She would just like have you come in and like make you tea, You guys would drink tea and kiki.
I know, and I feel like she must have more gossip that she didn't write down, and I want that gossip.
I mean, yeah, considering how she couldn't stop writing about her life and that like things were cut from her diary and then republished. I mean, there's got to be slivers here and there.
There's gonna be like one thing that she was like, I never wrote that down, but I'm gonna be like, it's gonna
Oh,
like change everything.
yes. Oh my God, I think you should channel her and write it. And that's your next book. Okay, there. Get to it. Okay. Oh, Shawn had to leave, which is very, very sad. But Naz, do you want to say anything about how your collection came together or how it's changed the process? And I see that you've answered you would like to choose Virginia Woolf.
But then I have like 700 other answers. Leonard Cohen,
Yeah, but you didn't overthink it.
Sarasat, my grandfather, like so many. I've been working on these stories for 18 years. And I'm someone who knew I wanted to be a writer when I was 6 years old. And I never thought it would take until I was 44 to publish my first book. And honestly, it sucks. I wish it had happened sooner. But it's happening now.
About writing is that it's not a youth culture like pop music. Like you can actually have a wild hit book at like 88 years old. Like there's really nothing stopping that from happening.
And Alice Munro, with all of the problems that we now know about her, didn't start publishing stories till she was in her 50s. And she had been writing up until that point, but getting rejected. And so I totally understand that. But I really just wanted to have like 30 books by the time I died. And I don't think that's going to happen.
Girl, could. It could. Okay, and who is next? Scully. Do you want to say anything about self-romancing? Where did it come from?
Sure. So I was the past few years I've been sort of in and out of the hospital, mental health reasons, and I started doing this kind of joke gratitude thing on my Instagram story where I just said all these like word vomit daily affirmations every day for about 6 months. People started really connecting with it and being like, this made me write my own funny like affirmations and got me out of my own damn head. And, I'm also mentally ill and all that stuff. So I connected with a lot of people. And then my friend Lucas, who I did the Hooters reading with, was the person who was like, I think you should actually like put these into a manuscript. It's kind of like a long form project. And I was like, well, that's crazy. So I did that. And yeah, trust me, it was the biggest surprise of my life to get an email from Michelle T like 24 hours later being like, hey, I have no idea who you are, but let's publish your book. And I was like, fuck. So yeah, it's just been the best. And then probably author, I'm torn between, two people I would like to invite would be Dylan Thomas and Alejandra Pizarnik.
Who's Alejandra Pizarnik?
Oh my God, Michelle, she was a Jewish Argentinian poet, lesbian poet. She died by a planned suicide. She left a lot of very, very beautiful poems. Her work is mostly written in Spanish, but also in French and has been widely translated to English. But you got to check her out. It's like the poems of my heart.
Oh, I will. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Cool. And Brooke Palmieri, you want to say anything about Bargain Witch? How it came about? How has it changed? Who would you like to have at your reading?
Oh yeah. Gosh, there are so many dead people that I try to bring with me everywhere. Yeah, someone I'm really interested in at the moment as a writer is this like very obscure 18th century trans man named John Diverdian, and like these poems exist about his life and about the friends who took care of him like right until death, and his business card survives and engravings of him survive, but I'm still looking for that like smoking gun journal, diary, anything. So I just have so many questions for him. Then all the engravings that exist, he's got like his arms filled with books. So I'm on the trail of it psychically, if nothing else. But yeah, I guess I mean, writing is so collaborative. So I think that something I tend to do, and I did it tonight, is use my obsession with history to somewhat block out my own perspective on things. And that's something I do kind of out of honest love, as well as like poor training in school. And it's taken a lot to make Bargain Witch as much of a deep dive like into my own life and experiences, and that has all been made possible by like really generous readers. Like my partner read it, and I think the parts that then later readers liked the best were things that she had said, like, you've only written one sentence, like you need to make a whole chapter out of this. She was able to kind of like very lovingly unpack the density with which I hid my own my own story. And so yeah, it's very much been a collaborative effort, and I think that has also been part of witches talk a lot about like quick magic and quick results, but for me the whole book is about really slow magic and this sense of purpose that unfolds as you like, or as I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. And I don't know if you've gotten to the last chapter, but there's also the way in which I did a very long spell when you and I first met in 2019, that kind of resulted in you asking me to write this book. So Vera and I have that in common, except mine started being like, what is this about? Mercury, tell me what is happening in my life. And it ended with you messaging me on the Aries eclipse in my 5th house, asking me to write a book.
Oh my God. I mean, I just love that I'm just like so easily manipulated by magic. I just love that about myself. And
I mean, me too. I tried to keep it open and non-manipulative, like what is going on here?
I do not feel manipulated at all.
You were involved. So
listen, you guys, you hear anyone listening, when you want to get published on Dopamine, build an altar, cast a spell, do a ritual, and we'll talk. I did. I felt you guys calling out to the universe. Yes, absolutely. Well, gosh, this was amazing. Thanks for throwing some questions into the chat and keeping us around for a little bit longer. And Peter, again, thank you so much for being such a big supporter of Dopamine. And, we all love City Lights so much and hold it in just such high esteem for all the things that it is. Just like what you were saying at the beginning, it's a bookstore, but it's like not, it's like all these other things. And we love all those things that it is. And we're so grateful to get to be held by you guys tonight. Thank you.
Well, we love you too. We love everybody in the room. Thank you so much, Michelle, for doing this. And we have posted links in the chat with which you may purchase copies of Slut's Anthology and Clement's book. And of course, if you're in the hood, come on down, pay us a visit. We're located in San Francisco's historic North Beach district. We're open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., kind of getting back to our pre-pandemic hours. And of course, today's event has been made possible by support from the City Lights Foundation, keeping me dutifully employed and fostering an active engagement with books and literary culture through our public events, our publishing program, and educational outreach, all dedicated to sustaining a vibrant community of readers, writers, and critical thinkers. So long, everyone. Have fun, be rad. Hope to see you all again soon. Much, much love.
Yay.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.